The reason it's called the invisible PR is this isn't stuff that you're sort of writing. It's not blog posts that you're putting out, but it is all of the things that are said behind the scenes about you and when you're not in the room ultimately. So I think many salespeople work on this finite idea that I have to hit my target this month. I have to hit my target the month after. And it's just focusing on that finite idea of revenue numbers. The whole idea behind the invisible PR concept is it's almost infinite. And it's for salespeople who aren't in it for the short term. They're in it for the longer term. And that sometimes includes giving a little bit of your time without knowing that you're definitely going to get something back in return.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Jonathan Finch, who is the commercial director at Big Presence. Big Presence is a revenue acceleration agency. So, Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you.
First question, what's a revenue acceleration agency? In layman's terms, for me.
Good question. Good question. It's not just a snazzy buzzword. Ultimately, we work with organisations all across the UK, probably not globally just yet. We do lead gen globally, but work with clients within the UK, and we help them accelerate their revenue performance. We help them generate more revenue faster through a number of different ways. One of our core services is through our lead generation service. So we work as an outsourced partner for clients doing all of the difficult and hard work in regards to finding them new clients and new people that they can work with. We also help companies with sales strategy and pretty much an end-to-end process, really, of if you think from when a client first comes and is aware of you all the way through to when they buy off you or they buy again. We help make that process faster, more efficient, and better. I also go into, I won't go into this too much because I'm how to put it, I'm probably not accredited to talk about this, but we do a lot on the sales tech side as well. My business partner, Andy, is incredible when it comes to CRM systems. There's a whole different subject there around sales tech, but it's got so much better over the last few years. I think organizations need to take a little bit more notice of how they could be making things faster. But that is our key and core offering.
Okay, so that's why you're talking revenue. It's this kind of all the stuff rather than just pure lead gen or pure meetings or something like that. Get it? So many stuff we could talk about in that. We're not going to talk about any about the things in that. No, and you know that I picked up on a LinkedIn post that you made the other day, and I loved it. You were talking about inside PR. Was that the expression you used?
Invisible.
No, sorry, invisible. There you go, Fred. Yeah, nice prep. Invisible PR. Yeah. Tell me more about invisible PR, and then we'll kind of go into some of the things which people can do if they reckon it's a good idea.
So this whole concept came from years ago. I used to work in conference and exhibition sales. I mean, this is a phrase and a technique I've used. Obviously, my background was in sales training. We've run a lot of workshops around this as well. But the whole idea and the whole theory behind it came from I had a conversation with a client. They couldn't afford to come to our exhibition. We were charging almost 10K for an exhibition stand. They were quite a small organisation. Couldn't afford to come. Spent quite a bit of time with that person, though, helping them out with some other things that they could potentially be doing instead of coming to a really expensive event like us to get clients. Went away, really didn't think anything of it. I got a phone call back about 2 weeks later from somebody completely different who said, I was talking to the person who I'd been speaking to previously who couldn't afford the exhibition stand, and they spoke incredibly highly of you. We'd love to have a conversation with you about coming to the expo. And they turned into one of my biggest clients that I had. Every year they'd come back, they'd buy a bigger stand each time. I used to account manage them quite closely. And then this concept came into me of invisible PR. What are people saying about you? What are people talking about behind the scenes when you're not there? And the reason it's called the invisible PR is this isn't stuff that you're sort of writing. It's not blog posts that you're putting out, but it is all of the things that are said behind the scenes about you and when you're not in the room ultimately. So I think many salespeople work on this finite idea that I have to hit my target this month. I have to hit my target the month after. And it's just focusing on that finite idea of revenue numbers. The whole idea behind the invisible PR concept is it's almost infinite. And it's for salespeople who aren't in it for the short term, they're in it for the longer term. And that sometimes includes giving a little bit of your time without knowing that you're definitely going to get something back in return.
Right, I like this. Would it be fair to say then that this is almost part of real personal brand? If we wanted to talk about that, not the shiny
100%.
stuff that you put out there and everyone can see, and it's all for the sort of the show. It's reputation. It's what you're actually like and what you actually do, and that's kind of deep, deep personal brand. Because
Absolutely. And
it's about the practice and the purpose that you have, I guess.
yes, absolutely. This ties in perfectly with that personal brand piece. And it also involves giving without expecting something in return. And again, I think quite a few salespeople get this wrong that they see if I'm not getting something out of this conversation, I don't want to be having this conversation. Whereas the idea behind invisible PR and also making sure that you've got your personal brand on point is sometimes having that conversation because you want to help somebody. And by helping that person, I'm a great believer that humans are good. You're always going to get the odd, I won't say what's in my head, but the odd person who isn't. Um, but I think humans are good, and if you do something nice for someone, I think most of the time people want to do something nice back for you. And that again, maybe just in a passing conversation that they're having with somebody else. But if I hadn't given my time to this person previously around this, to help them with some small tactical ideas that they could do, which I didn't necessarily have to, but that led to what was one of my biggest clients year on year, um, and helped me massively. But that's the whole principle, I suppose, behind invisible PR.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. Yeah, give without expecting something in return. That's a major trust builder, isn't it? I mean, we talk about trust in sales, and people go, how am I going to build trust? How am I going to do trust to somebody? Well, you can't. Yeah, well, you can be credible, yes. Reliable, yes. Yeah, careful with the information they give you, yes. But you're doing that for your own benefit, yeah. Trust ain't gonna be built. It's that sort of low self-orientation, isn't it? Which is I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do and it's good for them. Where you really start to benefit from it, isn't it?
Absolutely, and part of it as well. I mean, we're going into sort of personal branding elements of this. It's about being memorable. I mean, there's that saying which I'm probably going to get slightly wrong, but people remember what you said, they'll remember why you said it, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah,
And one of the greatest ways to be remembered by someone, I mean, if you want to stay in someone's long-term memory for a long period of time, you can either do that in two ways. One, do something really horrible to them. They'll remember you. They'll absolutely remember you, or do something really nice for them. And that stuff sticks in people's minds. And again, just going back to how this can be used in a sort of sales perspective, this is how I think great salespeople really make their impact and do well in a very long term because they're focused on an outcome, which absolutely has got to be your numbers, but they're also focused on next month's numbers. They're focused on the next 6 months' numbers, the next quarter's numbers, the next year's numbers. And it starts to get a lot easier when people are coming back to you going, I spoke to such somebody who spoke incredibly highly of you. And if you look at big presence, we've had massive growth in the last 18 months. We've grown from what was just myself originally to having 8 team members in. I've got to be completely honest, the biggest growth in that has been through invisible PR because we do a lot of outbound stuff ourselves. We're an outbound lead gen agency at the core. That's what we do. But a lot of the things that got us off the mark at the start were people that I'd spoken to, worked with, been in contact with previously over the years, who came back and went, I'd love to have a conversation with you about this. Now, again, that wasn't something that I could stick. This was exactly what I did, but it was a correlation of what I think was helping a lot of people out over the years, which people remembered and came back. And it's sort of if you think about the Simon Sinek,
mm,
I think about the finite game and the infinite game. Most people are playing an infinite game, and we definitely big presence have a culture of playing the infinite game rather than the
yeah,
finite game, rather than just looking at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. We're playing that infinite game of we care about helping people, and that I think just come back. I think it really comes around. It's sort of
yeah,
karma.
yeah. Well, what goes around comes around. Absolutely, yeah, yeah. And I mean, there is almost a selfish element to this, isn't there? Because sort of doing nice things for people actually does make you feel good as well. So it's not necessarily going to have to be painful or horrible for you. It's like, hey, we both benefit from this. I've done something nice, makes me feel good. You benefit from that.
Absolutely.
Happy days. Yeah,
100%. And you don't get me wrong, you can go the complete too far on this and just be completely giving out free stuff all the time to everybody. I mean, we're a business like everybody else. We have to make sure that we're making ends meet at the end of the month. But I have to say, me giving free advice to someone who, say, for example, we got a client who jumped on with me now and said, we'd potentially like to work with you. And I'm knowing from the outset they probably can't afford our initial rate card. I'll still spend an hour 2 hours, 90 minutes, however long, just giving them some advice on things that they could be potentially doing. Because longer term, well, to be honest, it gives me a nice feeling. Like you said before, it gives you a nice feeling, and helping someone who's a startup or helping someone who's a huge corporate organization, you often get the better feeling from helping the startup. Given the corporate may be the ones who's actually paying the bills, but from an impact perspective, you've got a real chance to help someone there, and I suppose change the way that they're doing things for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure all the charge for it brigade, don't give free advice ever, are going to jump all over this. They're very happy to give out
Oh,
that advice for free, though, aren't they? Is that ironic? Anyway, that's a different.
those are brilliant, because the fact that there's people out there just means that if you are going to sort of take this mindset and this way of looking at things, that that it just puts you in a better position. Because if all them are, oh, well, I won't talk to people unless they pay me. If they're not paying me hourly rate, I don't want to give them free advice. Don't give anything away for free, which there's loads of them out there. You see them all the time online talking about it. But that's great for me, because I'll quite happily take up and mop up all of those people that they don't want to speak to, and make a relationship with them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and do some good stuff. And what I really loved about the LinkedIn post is that, again, you put some very simple and easy ways to do this, which aren't going to take you a load of time, effort, but are potentially going to have a lot of impact for people. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that you put there was like helping a colleague, helping somebody who's having a bad day. They're not going to hit their figures, or there's just something not quite right there. Just taking that little piece of time to help them. How tricky is that? Like, that was one of the things you put.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other things can we do then? What are the practical things? We can help
I mean,
colleagues. What else?
I'm just jumping back there to what you said there about sort of helping colleagues out, Fred. But that was how I ultimately got promoted, within my first proper sales role. I really started off as a B2B sales exec selling conference and exhibition space, but ended up as the head of training and development there, and the head of the education sales department. The way that I got promoted into that role was by constantly helping others, around the team. I love training, I love development. I think there's something really, that just really hits home with me inside when you're helping somebody else and you can see those breakthrough moments that they're having and stuff. I mean, you'll know this as well as anyone. But the way that I first got promoted to managing one of the teams in there was because my leader, my director above me, had noticed that I was constantly getting involved in helping other staff members to succeed as well. It wasn't just focusing on my own figures, in there, but that's, it's not just this isn't just sort of a technique that you can use within sales. I think in sort of every part of life. To talk about the other things that you can do as well, this is where I think a lot of people get LinkedIn content wrong, and Facebook content wrong. You sit there and think, right, I need to do some content for LinkedIn. So they think, what do I need? Right, I need more clients, I need more sales. So then they jump on there and they put a post out, which is basically an advert. Now, again, with LinkedIn, I try and look at my content and sort of a few different strands really to the sorts of things that I post. But the biggest one I'm always asking myself is this going to help somebody else? Is this going to, again, make me memorable to somebody else? Is it going to help someone else solve a problem? And there's always that theory behind of, my view is you should give everything away within your business, all your secrets, all your techniques. People will still pay for you to go and do that stuff for them. People want the convenience a lot of the time rather than the secrets. A lot of the advice that you see coming from sales coaches, sales strategists, if you looked hard enough, you could probably find online. You could find the same principles. There's very, very few things that are absolutely groundbreaking that are on there. But I think people will still pay you to do it. But by having that infinite content that's constantly coming out on LinkedIn of helpful tips and helpful tricks for people, that's definitely where we brought in, and my last business, why we grew so quickly, because we didn't focus on putting adverts out there. We focused on putting out good content, which everyone who read it, watched it, listened to it, wasn't necessarily in the moment there of I need to buy sales training, I need to get some sales consultancy. But it did mean that maybe in 6 months' time, when they just had that conversation at board about changing the training provider, you were the name that came up in their head because they'd seen and they'd used those tricks or they'd watched those videos. And that was one of the biggest contracts that we ever won at my last company, which was for a huge amount of salespeople. It was the sort of contract we shouldn't have even been in the room bidding for, but we ended up winning. Was due to the fact that we'd just been putting out so much content, and someone said, "Have you spoke to those guys? A bit different from what been looking at. Have you spoke to those guys?" And we ended up winning the contract out of it. And it was a game changer for us revenue wise. It massively changed the whole business very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think no, I do. I say implementation over information. So I'm happily will put as much stuff out there as possible. Like I was just saying to you before we hit record, I've trained this AI chatbot, digital Fred. Realize everything's in there, literally. I mean, you go and ask it probably stuff I would hold back for training, but not because I'm deliberately holding it back. It's just that that's where it kind of appears. 'Cause I haven't got enough time to give everything away. But if somebody wants that thing at that time, they can ask the, Bread AI. So yeah, and certainly I remember all the stuff that you used to put out there. I was a guest on your podcast, wasn't I? So
Absolutely, yeah,
um,
yeah.
cool. Okay, so generous with information. What else? What other things can we do to this create this invisible PR?
I think again, one of the things that sort of touched on there, but is being generous with time. I mean, as a salesperson or as a business owner, as a professional, time is the one thing that you have that is again, it's finite. Once you get to 24 hours in the day, you can't try and squeeze a 25th in there. It's gone, it's finished. But I do think that one of the things that you can really give to people is your time. With that, obviously, you're going to give bits of advice within there, and you're going to help them with a solution problem. But a big part of that as well comes down to listening. I mean, I think we're very good at as an organization of not just working with our clients and working with people on that transactional level. We do this, you do that. That's how this works. I think a big part of it for me is about giving time to people because that's where it's where true relationships will come out and where you can. This is something as well that you can't measure, and I think this is why a lot of salespeople don't take this view of things. It's because you can't measure it. I can't put this on your performance review at the end of the month as how was your invisible PR grown this month. You'd be looked at like you're a loon. But I think that's a big thing for me is knowing that you're doing this and knowing that it's working for you behind the scenes. Someone once gave me a piece of advice when we were growing the last business that was people are talking about you in rooms that you don't even know about. And it was like, wow, what a powerful thing. You can have this sort of invisible marketing force out there. And then it actually got me thinking, like, where's our name being mentioned? And then I thought, well, what else can we do to get our name mentioned elsewhere? And then we started looking at how else could we do that through speaking gigs, that sort of thing. So rather than just going and just, running a traditional stand-up seminar, running it more like a workshop, getting someone up and solving a problem for them, that stuff's memorable. People remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. So while you're talking there, I've been sort of reconciling this with some older language we used to use, which was like the Goodwill Bank.
Hmm.
But that's more about making a deposit so that you can withdraw it later. So technically, is that a different thing then to what you're saying? Is that you're doing that because you do want something back? The invisible PR, you're doing it. You're doing it. Might come back, might not, but it's just something that's out there and working for you.
I think if you treat this process correctly, it will always come back to you.
Mm,
It may not come back in again the form that you can quantify, but um, I mean, you could quantify this in revenue as the amount of inbound inquiries that
mm,
you get or referrals, as an example. You could start to quantify it by that. But I think a huge part of this is trusting the process that you are investing this in. But I think, again, the key is not to be expecting a return. You will get a
yeah,
return. But if you're doing it, and this, again, is where I think people get this wrong. They go, oh, do you know what? I'll follow that advice. I'll use invisible PR for 3 months. Then at the end of 3 months, they're going, I don't know what I've had back from this. You go, well, you've only sort of been doing it for 3 months. Like, what were you really expecting back in that short amount of time? It's an infinite thing that you've got to preach.
yeah, it's a habit. It was a mind. Is it habit mindset? I mean, similar kind of thing there. It's just what you do. It becomes part of you. It's your DNA. That's how you are as a person, and that's why people want to deal with you. I guess that's a
I think that's definitely a mindset thing, but more than habit, I'd say, because for me, I don't find this, that I've got to practice it. I've got to practice it. I think it's something that, being completely honest, I got from my sort of upbringing. My parents are both incredibly kind people, would always go over and above to help anybody else with anything. So it was almost sort of something that was inset for me from a very young age that we help people. We're there not just to serve ourselves. We're sort of bigger than that, and we're there to work and help other people with their problems and challenges. I mean, I continually consider myself sort of very lucky with the life that I've got, the partner I've got, with the business that we've managed to pull together, the people that are in there, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. So I think it's about sharing a little bit of that love as well.
yeah, yeah. And again, I've got the post in front of me here. Just a couple of things that you were saying. Incredibly easy. Saying thank you or sending a thank you message to someone who probably really needs to hear that. Yeah, I mean, saying thank you anyway, we probably should be doing, but it's like a very deliberate. Actually, I reckon they just need that tiny little upper. It can take me seconds to do this. Yeah,
We focus
easy
quite a bit
peasy.
on we focus quite a bit on this because I mean one thing, it's a really small thing that we do, but whenever a client comes on board with us, we send them something in the post. 20 client that signs up to work with us, a week after they've signed up with us, we send them something in the post. It's a physical gift. We've done everything from cookies, brownies, sweet boxes, and it is quite literally a thank you for working with us. Thank you
Mm.
for putting your faith in us. You know, you're not just investing your money into working with us; you're investing a lot of your time, and we want to say thank you. Thank you for that. Whenever I get a referral, if someone hands over some work, I'm very similar. We'll normally send them something in the post to just say a little thank you. But this is stuff again that contributes to that invisible PR of what are people saying about you. Working with any organization, I mean, we did an exercise this morning with a team about USPs. Got all the team together this morning on our team meeting. I said, what are our USPs? And we ran through the exercise of putting down all of our USPs, but are any of them unique? And if any sales leaders, sales managers listening, that's a really good way of doing this. Could you put USPs up on your board and go, right, team, what are the USPs? And they come out with, well, with this, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, and everyone looks very happy with themselves. Then you go over and you go, those are SPs, those are selling points, they're not unique.
Yeah.
If I went on the internet now, I could quite easily find another company that says that they do all of those things. None of them actually are unique. The only thing I honestly think brands and companies have to be unique is the people that are in there and how they do things. And the service and offering is probably going to be very similar to what somebody else could do. And we don't shy away from that. But that's the only thing that you can do that is unique. How do you handle things? You know, how do you handle complaints, as an example? Another one that can contribute towards your invisible PR. How do you handle a difficult situation? I had a client that messaged me yesterday. It wasn't a complaint. She said, this isn't a complaint, but I just feel I've lost a bit of where we're up to. Oh, fantastic. That's amazing. I'm so happy that that client has felt that they can come and have that conversation. They're not messaging going, putting a notice in, we don't want to do this. They're going, I feel like I've lost a few weeks. Can we have some more time to catch up? One of the team had a conversation with them this morning. Everything's absolutely fine. She messaged me back saying, brilliant, really appreciate that. Thank you for doing it. But how do you handle complaints? How do you handle all the difficult bits? That's the invisible PR that properly matters. Handle the good stuff. Good stuff takes care of itself. You don't need any help handling that. How do you handle the difficult stuff?
That is so true. I like that. I really like that. You're making me reflect. um, and the other one, again, I'm looking at that original post. You've talked about talking to a competitor.
Mhm.
What? What are you on, Jonathan? Come on, talking to competitors.
So my the last company that I was involved in, myself and my business partner, we were competitors at the start. Like I just started doing training. He didn't really do training. He was more in the sales strategy space. But you know, someone was either going to spend on the strategy or they were going to spend on training. If a company local to us was struggling, you know, we're relatively sort of well known locally, but they were either going to spend with me and do training or they were going to spend with them and do strategy. We were competitors. We ended up joining forces and we grew massively and we managed to get to about 1.3 million in 5 years. It was a great story, but we were competitors. Go talk to your competitors. All right, you're always going to get the odd ones who are a bit like, why are you talking to us? But you'll wheel those out very, very quickly. But conversations that I've had, I mean, Fred, you, me, we
I
used to be
know. I'm just
competitors.
thinking we ought to wrap this up pretty quick.
We were competitors, weren't we? Flipping out. In some elements, we probably still are, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I think there's a lot of strength to be had in finding people who are in your market that are competitors but have the same outlook on things as you. If you've got someone who's got the same outlook on things, and I'm talking not just from a product perspective, I'm talking morally. You know, you and me get on very well because I think we have the same beliefs of what we should do. The fact we're having this conversation now is because we both believe in invisible PR
yeah.
and we've got the same beliefs. And I think there's a real lot to be said for people working in collaboration. And I love talking to competitors, given there's always the ones who won't want to talk to you. That's fine. No.
Mate, I interviewed a load of people who are involved in the sales training world for this podcast. Yeah. Again, why am I picking the ones I want to talk to? They've got something interesting to say, but I can, it's normally what someone else has said about them, or they've just kind of got that thing that you can see they're kind people, they want to help, they're doing stuff that is kind of, yeah, similar to the way I do it. So I want to find out. They might, but again, it's not that we're necessarily going to collaborate. It's just they seem like good folk to chat to, you know? So
Absolutely. But you never know
yeah.
where those relationships are going to go. You've no idea where those relationships are going to end up. I mean, for me and like I said, my last business partner, we were could have been just banging at heads and both trying to outdo each other on what we're doing and what we're offering and jumping on each other's turf. And turned out that there was an absolute fantastic relationship there that spanned, commercially speaking, for a good 5 years. And I'm very grateful for that. I really am.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for this invisible PR, isn't there? There is a lot to be said. Um, just I don't know how. So let's just think. How can we summarize it then? If we want to sort of try and put a strap line or sell invisible PR, what's the sort of way we would market this? Is it just being kind? Is it being decent? I don't know.
I think giving without expecting a return, and also sometimes knowing that that person can't give you a return, because like I say, when I say give you a return, I mean commercially speaking. There's going
Yeah.
to be times when you're speaking to someone and you know that there is going to be no immediate return from that conversation, but you're doing it because you want to help that person. And if you're
Yeah.
doing it because you want to help that person, again, you can't quantify this and go, if I give this, I'll get X back. But it is with that belief that, you people are good and they'll want to give back. If you give to them, they'll want to give to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's the antithesis of, right, I'm going to give this person some money, the person on the street some money, and then take a photo of it and then post all about it on LinkedIn to make myself look really, really, yeah, it's not
Yeah.
that. It's the
No,
opposite of
that's but I
that.
think that's you watch a lot of these videos that are sort of happening now. People are doing that to grow their social following. And we were having a discussion about this exact topic actually last night, where they're going over and giving them people on the streets £1,000 or buying them stuff, doing a video about it, making it look like I'm incredibly kind. I'm doing it. I'm like, but you got 2.5 million views on that video, which is going to net you back 10 times what you've given that person. So it's not really kindness. That's you're doing it because you want to get some YouTube views and you want to make some money off it.
It
It's
is quantified. It's absolutely done with return expected. But yeah, no, I like that. I like that. So giving without expected return. Awesome. Awesome. Oh, that looks great stuff. Great stuff, mate. Um, I appreciate you giving your time. I know you're kind of on holiday at the moment, working holiday, working on holiday, holiday wait. I don't know. It's
but don't
lifestyle,
tell
isn't
the
it
team
now?
I'm
It's
on holiday.
lifestyle,
I'm
isn't it?
I'm working. I'm working. Yeah, today's definitely a working day.
He's going to point to this as some work. No, look, no, joking apart, I really appreciate you spending a bit of time talking that through with me. It's I really hope that some people pick up on this, and can start to use it for good. Um, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to contact?
Easiest way where I'm most active is probably LinkedIn. So if you go on, type in Big Presence, you'll find us there. Or if you go on and type in Jonathan Finch, you'll find myself on there as well. But anyone wants to have a conversation about this, or also, I suppose, with the focus on invisible PR, needs any help with anything. If I can't help you, believe me, I'll tell you to start with. I definitely can't help with that. It's not my area of expertise. But if I can, I'm more than happy to spend half an hour with anybody, having a conversation if it's something that would help.
Awesome. We'll drop those links into chat anyway to make it dead easy for folks to get in touch. Thanks again, then, mate. Really do appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Fred. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.